Robert Duvall has ultimately stepped out of decades of silence, and the film industry has been buzzing ever since. After spending more than 60 years in the public eye, the 94-year-old screen legend has disclosed that there were 4 individuals he found impossible to work with. Throughout his long career, he has been recognized for his composed attitude and consistent professionalism, which makes these revelations about unresolved tensions all the more striking. For much of his life in Hollywood, Robert Duvall symbolized the very best of the industry: dedication, discipline, respect for the craft, and undeniable talent. Fellow actors frequently praised him, audiences admired his performances, and his decision to avoid public discussion of behind-the-scenes conflicts added to his quiet, almost enigmatic reputation. However, in a recent interview that has captured widespread attention, Duvall decided that remaining silent was no longer necessary. Reportedly, he expressed, "I've kept my mouth shut for decades, but at this age, what am I waiting for? It's time to tell the truth." This unexpected admission has left many people in disbelief. It is difficult for some to reconcile this new openness with the image of the same man who has long been regarded as one of Hollywood's most dignified figures. The fact that these issues were held back for more than 50 years suggests that the conflicts were not trivial disagreements, but rather deep and meaningful disputes. Individuals familiar with his history have indicated that these clashes had real consequences on film productions, influencing performances, altering creative decisions, and in some cases, shaping the final outcome of entire movies. With Duvall now speaking publicly, the entertainment world is filled with speculation and curiosity. Many are eager to uncover the identities of the 4 individuals he referenced and to understand what truly occurred behind the polished and carefully maintained image of classic Hollywood. Before identifying those names, it is important to consider why someone as reserved and respected as Robert Duvall chose to break his long-standing silence at this point in his life. According to those close to him, the decision was not spontaneous. Instead, it came after a period of reflection and personal evaluation. At this stage in his life, he reportedly felt a responsibility to correct narratives that had been inaccurately portrayed over time. A longtime associate, speaking anonymously, explained that Duvall had become increasingly frustrated with documentaries and tribute pieces that portrayed complex working relationships, as if they were entirely harmonious. This oversimplification, the associate noted, was something that troubled him deeply. The moment that may have triggered his decision reportedly occurred during a recent tribute event honoring his career. While seated among the audience, Duvall watched as highlight reels played scenes from various films, including performances alongside actors he had privately struggled to work with. As the audience applauded and the narration described these collaborations as examples of mutual admiration and lasting friendships, Duvall remained outwardly composed but internally unsettled. He later remarked, "I sat there listening to all that revisionist nonsense about creative partnerships while remembering how one of those people used to deliberately step on my lines to ruin takes." He also mentioned that another individual had once attempted to have him removed from a role that ultimately became one of his defining performances. Now in his 90s, and having already secured an Academy Award along with numerous nominations, Robert Duvall no longer felt compelled to uphold Hollywood's idealized version of events. He clarified that his intention was not to seek attention or stir controversy, but rather to provide clarity. He also emphasized a sense of responsibility toward younger generations of actors, stating that they deserve a truthful understanding of how the industry operates. In his view, these young actors deserve to know the truth. He further added that cinematic greatness is not always the product of harmony, explaining, "Sometimes greatness comes from chaos, jealousy, and hard lessons behind the curtain." Number 1. Dustin Hoffman. The first individual he named was Dustin Hoffman, whom Duvall described as someone who, in his view, took creative credit in ways that were difficult to accept. This revelation surprised many, particularly because the 2 actors had shared what appeared to be a close bond early in their careers. Both began as struggling performers in New York, navigating a competitive environment while seeking opportunities in theater and film. Duvall recalled that he and Dustin Hoffman once lived together in an apartment in uptown New York and initially shared a genuine friendship. During those early years, they exchanged ideas, supported each other's ambitions, and encouraged one another through the challenges of breaking into the industry. However, over time, Duvall claimed that their understanding of friendship began to diverge significantly. He alleged that he would invest considerable time developing interpretations for auditions, only to observe Hoffman adopting similar approaches during his own performances. Duvall viewed this as a breach of trust that altered his perception of collaboration within Hollywood. He also suggested that Hoffman would occasionally credit him as an influence in conversations with others, something Duvall interpreted as misrepresentation rather than acknowledgement. According to Duvall, this pattern continued even as both actors achieved success. During overlapping film projects in the late 1960s and early 1970s, he described situations in which Hoffman would seek advice from him, while later presenting those ideas independently in interviews. One such instance involved discussions about character development, where Duvall later noticed that Hoffman's public explanations omitted any reference to their exchanges. The situation escalated when both actors were considered for a prominent role in a major 1971 film, a role that ultimately went to another performer. Duvall stated that this moment marked the end of their communication. He believed he had identified a recurring pattern in which certain individuals benefited from others' ideas while framing it as collaboration. He further alleged that Hoffman influenced casting perceptions by portraying him as difficult during conversations with the director. Duvall believes this contributed to him losing a significant opportunity. While Dustin Hoffman denied these claims when approached years later, Duvall maintained that he had received his information directly from the director involved. Despite these tensions, Robert Duvall continued to present himself professionally in public for decades. He attended events, participated in discussions, and spoke respectfully about Hoffman's work when asked. This composed exterior concealed the deeper and long-standing disagreement that remained hidden from public view for over half a century. Number 2. Marlon Brando. The second individual mentioned by Duvall was Marlon Brando, whom he described as the most disruptive personality he had encountered. While acknowledging Brando's extraordinary talent, Duvall emphasized that brilliance and difficult behavior often coexisted in his experience. Their most notable collaboration took place during the 1966 film The Chase, which also featured actors such as Jane Fonda and Robert Redford. Duvall claimed that Marlon Brando frequently altered his performance between takes, making continuity challenging. He also described instances where subtle actions affected the flow of scenes involving other actors. One particularly memorable incident involved Brando allegedly creating small off-camera disturbances during Duvall's monologue, resulting in repeated retakes. When confronted, Brando reportedly responded by suggesting that Duvall should refine his own choices, a comment Duvall interpreted as deflection rather than constructive criticism. Duvall characterized this behavior as manipulative, suggesting that Brando would create disruptions and then imply that others were responsible for the consequences. Even so, he acknowledged Brando's brilliance while maintaining his criticism of his collaborative approach. The third name on Duvall's list was James Caan. Their work together on The Godfather produced one of cinema's most iconic sibling dynamics. Yet Duvall described their off-screen relationship as distant and competitive. He explained that Caan's intensity sometimes extended beyond acting into behavior that impacted others on set. During rehearsals, he recalled instances where Caan attempted to dominate scenes through gestures or distractions designed to draw focus away from fellow performers. Despite these tensions, both actors delivered performances that contributed significantly to the film's enduring success. Duvall observed that their lack of personal connection may have actually enhanced the authenticity of their on-screen relationship, allowing for a more realistic portrayal of complex family dynamics. The fourth and final individual identified was Robert Redford, whom Duvall discussed in more critical terms. He suggested that Redford's public persona did not align with his personal experiences working with him. Their collaboration on The Natural in 1984 began professionally, but reportedly became strained over time. Duvall claimed that Redford's conduct on set sometimes caused delays due to personal commitments during production hours, which affected the overall workflow. He also alleged that Redford attempted to reduce the prominence of certain aspects of his role during post-production, particularly in scenes where his character presented narrative challenges to Redford's lead role. According to Duvall, these actions were less about storytelling and more about maintaining dominance within the film. The conflict allegedly reached a peak during a direct confrontation, where Redford reportedly emphasized a distinction between leading actors and character actors. Duvall recalled that this moment had a lasting effect on his perspective of both Redford and the industry as a whole. Following the interview, reactions throughout Hollywood ranged from shock to cautious acknowledgement. Representatives for both Hoffman and Redford expressed surprise while continuing to show respect for Robert Duvall and his long-standing contributions to cinema. At the same time, some insiders quietly confirmed aspects of his account, with crew members supporting claims about tensions on certain sets. Director Francis Ford Coppola reportedly acknowledged in general terms that complex interpersonal dynamics often play a role in the intensity seen on screen, without naming specific individuals. This perspective appeared to indirectly support the idea that Duvall's experiences reflected broader realities within the industry. In the aftermath of the interview, several actors reportedly reached out privately to thank Duvall for expressing sentiments they themselves had experienced but never felt comfortable sharing. His statements have opened a wider discussion about transparency, collaboration, and the realities behind successful film productions. In subsequent comments, Robert Duvall clarified that his intention was not to seek revenge or damage reputations. Instead, he emphasized honesty as an essential part of preserving the true history of the industry. He reiterated that his accounts were not isolated disputes, but long-term dynamics that had tangible effects on careers and productions. One particular statement from his interview has drawn significant attention. Duvall noted that although 4 individuals stood out to him, they were not the only ones he had encountered. This remark has fueled ongoing speculation about whether additional revelations may emerge in the future. For now, Hollywood finds itself reflecting on a narrative that challenges long-standing assumptions. Duvall's revelations suggest that the realities behind fame, collaboration, and success are far more intricate than the polished images presented to the public.